Climate change is upon us. Oceans are rising, fires are raging, storms are brewing, and we need solutions fast. And world leaders and politicians often seem to be spewing empty promises.
And that's why we are pledged here in the UK to deliver net zero by 2050.
But there is hope on the horizon. We just need to act fast. We have hundreds of readily available climate change solutions at our fingertips that, when scaled up, could successfully prevent and then balance the amount of CO2 in the atmosphere back to pre-industrial levels. Project Drawdown, a nonprofit group of researchers and scientists, compiled a list of the top 100. In this video, we're going to talk about in Kigali, Rwanda, 106 representatives shuffled through a meeting hall. The mood was relaxed as they scribbled their signatures on what would become one of the most significant global climate agreements you've probably never heard of. But before we discuss the inner workings of what is now called the Kigali Accord, let's first look at the problem we face. To do that, we have to travel back to 1987, to a balmy August day in Montreal. That day, 196 countries and the European Union ratified a protocol calling on all countries to phase out the use of chlorofluorocarbons, or CFCs, in refrigerants by 1996. Up until 1987, CFCs were shredding a hole in the ozone, but as a direct result of the Montreal Protocol, CFC use dropped drastically and the hole in the ozone layer began to shrink. The treaty was a definitive success, except for one thing. CFCs were replaced by hydrofluorocarbons, a substance that doesn't damage the ozone, but instead is an extremely potent greenhouse gas. Hydrofluorocarbons, or HFCs, have 1,000 to 9,000 times the capacity to trap heat than CO2. Although it's fairly short-lived in the atmosphere, the consequences of an HFC buildup could be massive. But it also means that a phase-out of HFCs could visibly slow the rate of global warming substantially, which brings us back to that accord signed in Kigali. Starting in 2019, the Kigali Accord requires high-income countries to begin the phase-out of HFCs, followed by a series of lower-income countries over the next 8 years. According to a number of research papers, replacing HFCs with natural refrigerants like ammonia or propane over the next 30 years has the potential to avoid up to 0.5 to 1 degrees Celsius of global warming and the equivalent of avoiding 57.8 gigatons of carbon dioxide emissions by 2050. That's the same as taking every single car off the road globally for the next 90 years. What's exciting is that the Montreal Protocol's success and the Kigali Amendment's ratification show that management of HFCs is not just a dream. It's a very real solution to climate change that is already being scaled up across the world. At the end of the day, all of these solutions will only work if you and I make our mark and do the work. Whether that means taking to the streets, getting rid of meat, working with your institutions to transform their policies, or doing all three, action is essential. As the years tick closer to 2050, our chance to avoid the worst of climate change slowly escapes us. But working towards these three solutions, alongside hundreds of others, is the work we need to do. Complacency and apathy are, in the face of climate chaos, a luxury we cannot afford. We, the global community, have the solutions available. We just have to have the courage and will to turn them into a reality.